Hello and welcome to McIver's Grant Public Library's Not One Damsel in Distress. Today is the third video in our Not One Damsel in Distress series, which is based on the book by Jane Yolen, Not One Damsel in Distress, Heroic Girls from World Folklore. The book was illustrated by Susan Guerva, and it was published by Houghton, Mifflin, and Harcourt. I knew I'd get tongue-tied someplace. Today we are doing the story of Li Chi Slays the Serpent. And if you remember, these are all stories about women and girls who were heroes in folklore around the world. So this is a Chinese story, and it says, "Here is a maiden who will not be sacrificed." Once long ago, in a cleft in the northwest portion of the great Young Mountains, there lived a giant serpent. He was many li long, and to span his body would have taken 10 hands. If the serpent had remained only in the cleft, eating rabbits and mice and an occasional deer, no one would have thought anything of it. Serpents often dwelled in the mountains in those days. But this serpent had crept down into the valley on moonless nights and taken off first sheep and then oxen, and finally it almost swallowed a magistrate's daughter who was visiting the home of an elderly aunt, though she managed to escape and run home. The local people became terrified. Wouldn't you be if a gigantic serpent larger than a tree was devouring your livestock and threatening a child? So the villagers sent word to the military commander of the nearby capital city, and as is often the case, he was a friend of the magistrate whose daughter had been nearly devoured. The commander sent out soldiers to slay the dragon. Now, you notice they've called it a serpent, but it's a dragon. 10 men marched out, and only one marched back. The rest had been eaten by the monster who had now had a taste for human flesh. The serpent made its desires known through the dreams of mediums and charlatans and seers. "Bring me a sweet and succulent young maiden," the serpent told them. "No more soldiers, if you please. They are too tough and not particularly pleasant. Once a year, on the 8th day of the 8th month, deliver the girl to my cave. If you do so, I will leave your flocks and your soldiers alone." Helpless, the commander and the magistrate consulted with the most important men of the city and the villages nearby. At last, reluctantly, they decided they had no choice. So they began selecting the daughters of criminals and servants, one a year for 9 years. With bound hands and feet, the girls were delivered to the cleft in the rock that was the serpent's cave. 9 years, 9 girls. In the 10th year, the men began once again their search for the perfect sweet and succulent maiden to have her bound and ready for the 8th month. Now, there was a man in the countryside below the Young Mountains named Li Tan. He had 6 daughters and no sons. His youngest daughter, Li Chi, came to him as the search went on. "Father," she said, "let me be the girl sent to the serpent." Li Tan refused. His wife refused. "We will not let you die in the mouth of this monster," they said. Li Chi bowed to them. "Dear parents," she said, "since you have brought forth 6 daughters and no sons, it is as if you are childless. I am nothing. I'm the 6th nothing in this family." For in those days, girls were considered of no value in the Chinese family. "You are not nothing to us," said her parents. "Nevertheless, I cannot take care of you when you are old," Li Chi continued. "I only waste your food and your clothing. What would be wrong in selling me to the serpent seekers and getting a bit of money for yourselves?" But her parents would not let her go, so Li Chi sneaked out of the house that very night and in secret presented herself to the authorities. "But do not bind my hands and feet," she said. "Give me rather a sharp sword and a snake-hunting dog." "What can you, a mere girl, do that 10 men could not?" they asked. "What does it matter if I go armed or unarmed?" asked Li Chi. "You are right," said the authorities. "The serpent will have you in the end." And they gave her a sharp sword and the best serpent-hunting dog that could be found, for they were relieved not to have to search further. When the 8th day of the 8th month arrived, Li Chi readied herself. She took several pecks of rice balls moistened with malt sugar and put them in a sack. And then with the sack over her left shoulder and the sword over her right, she whistled up the dog and started up the steep Young Mountains. Soldiers trailed behind her to make certain that she did not turn back. All day she climbed without stopping, and never a word she spoke to the men. At last she came to the serpent's cave, and only then turned to the captain of the troop. "Take your men back," she said. "It would not do to have them be eaten." The men were grateful to leave. As soon as they were out of sight, Li Chi got the rice balls out of her bag and put them at the mouth of the cave, lining them up one on top of the other. "Oh, Serpent," she called, "eat these sweet rice balls, and not poor pitiful me." And she wept loudly, as if she were afraid. The serpent, smelling both the rice balls and the succulent girl, slithered out of the cave head first, and that head was as large as a barrel. "I shall eat the rice balls, and then I shall eat you as well," it hissed. Opening its mouth wide to bite down on the sticky balls, the serpent momentarily obscured its own eyesight. That was the very moment Li Chi unleashed the snake-hunting dog. The dog made no distinction between a small adder and a great serpent, and it bit hard on the back of the serpent's neck. The serpent tried to shake off the dog, but could not. And then Li Chi came up from behind with a sword and scored deep gashes into the serpent's neck. As the serpent tried to back up and could not, so deep and awful were its wounds, so it tried instead to slide out further to give itself more room to fight. But at each new length of its body, Li Chi struck with the sword, and the snake-hunting dog bit with its sharp teeth. And very soon the serpent was bloodied all over, and very soon after that it shook all over, and then it died. Li Chi waited until she was certain the serpent was dead, and then she went into the cave, where she found the skulls of the 9 girls. She sighed, brought them out one by one, and put them into the sack, saying, "For your timidity you were devoured. How pitiful that is." Then she went back down the mountain path, and with the snake-hunting dog trotting behind. It is said that the king of Ur learned of these events from a ballad singer and made Li Chi his queen. It is further said that he appointed Li Tan as his chief magistrate of the district around the Young Mountains. Li Chi's mother was given many honors, and her sisters were married off to noblemen. In this way, the girls brought honor and riches to their family. And from that day to this, owing to the power and determination of one girl, the Young Mountains have been free of monster serpents. And there's a picture of Li Chi and the dog fighting that massive serpent. Isn't that a wonderful story? I love that she was brave enough to go up, and then she said, "What does it matter to you if I have come armed or not?" And they've thought, "You're right, you're just a mere girl." They said it again in this one, just like they did in the Nana Miriam one. What can a mere girl do? Well, you know what a mere girl can do. You have so much power and so much that you can do. And I love that about this book. I'm so glad Jane Yolen wrote this book. So for our craft today, we are going to make a Chinese dragon, and it's 2-sided. Okay. In your craft kit, here's what it says. It says Li Chi Dragon Activity. So you can tell the story after with your puppet if you would like to. Okay. So in your craft kit, you have the directions. You have your red piece of paper that you'll fold up like an accordion, and you have your green piece of paper with all your dragon parts on it, and they are 2-sided. So as you can see, you've got 2 heads, and you just fold them right there in the middle, and you'll glue those to the head and the tail to each end of your red piece of paper. And then when you glue on your popsicle sticks in your bag, you've got popsicle sticks, you have a glue stick, and you have these little pieces of tissue paper that are your fire. So when you glue on your popsicle sticks, then you'll glue your legs on top of them, so it'll kind of hide the popsicle sticks. And then you'll glue your fire to the mouth on both sides, and you'll have your own dragon that you can make move, and you can tell the story. And I love that craft. So this is our last, not only our last Not One Damsel in Distress video and event of this summer, but summer reading officially closes this afternoon. But that doesn't mean that we're done. We've got all kinds of stuff still available on readsquared.com, and we'll continue putting out missions until school starts. So you'll be able to come and be a knight, you'll get to be a pirate, you'll get to be a princess, you'll get to be a dragon. Let's see, what are the other missions? You'll get to do some artwork, you're going to get to write some poetry, all of that between now and school. So there's still plenty to do, and there's still plenty of activity kits here in the lobby of McIver's Grant Public Library. We would love to have you come and get online and log your reading. Keep logging it. We're not going to turn it off. We're going to leave it on for the whole summer so that you've got plenty to do between now and when school starts. And then if you are one of those that are going to be homeschooled, they'll have a little bit of extra stuff you can do if you want to during your homeschooling. If you're one of the ones going to school, you might have a little something to do when you get home. So we are just happy to be connecting with you this way. We sure have missed your faces. And thank you for making our summer reading a fairy tale and a dream come true. Have a wonderful, wonderful summer, and we'll see you again on Monday. Bye.